October 13th, a little before 10 a.m. And it seems that my video camera overheated and it stopped recording a few minutes before it would have stopped recording anyway. So I'll just continue on here in terms of what I was saying about the symbol carved into the outer perimeter of Dowth's stone basin, which I believe at minimum is a sun-moon conjunction symbol, like this symbol here, but it may also be essentially a winged sun symbol as well. It might be an Irish version of this specific Hittite winged sun symbol, which depicts the moon embracing the sun in a solar eclipse. This is a very common universal symbol of solar eclipses, an upturned lunar crescent embracing the sun. The sun here is represented like a flower. That is because when the sun is totally eclipsed by the moon, it does appear rather like a large flower up there in the sky, with the dark moon as the central part, and then the rays and streamers and plumes of the sun's corona shining out all around it, very much like the petals of a flower. So to me, this Hittite winged sun symbol is more than that. It's a winged sun-moon conjunction symbol, clearly inspired by total solar eclipses, clearly alluding to eclipses with the sun-moon conjunction symbol. And I do believe that there's a very real possibility that the symbol on Dowth Stone Basin is the same type of symbol. Certainly at minimum, in my view, it's the crescent moon embracing the sun. Let's see if we can go back there. Okay, so that's the tweet. Where is the... okay, well, forget that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go to this video that Martin Byrne is speaking in, and he mentions...
And that is a close-up of the design carved on the stone at the back. You can see this very large, complex circular symbol
so
here.
This is low
this
cruise,
bulge or this flare
another Irish pattern,
which has been suggested by quite a few people. This may be an eclipse or a representation of an eclipse. And there's a little carving down here to the right as well. And this carving, you actually have the sun's rays coming up. You have a crescent, just like a child would draw the sun. So it's telling you that you were looking at the sunrise here. So it's amazing when you see these stones when there's no sunlight on them, when you see them just in normal daylight, because when you see the power of the sun when it's shining in on them, it's quite spectacular.
It's my budgie but going away in the background.
This controversial might be considered a little bit alignment, or this alignment might be considered a little bit controversial by some people. But I was lucky enough to witness this around 1997, and it happens on the cross-quarter day, which, roughly again when the monument in Carramore is being lit up by the sun. The one in Tara, as well, the Mount of the Hostages, has a similar alignment, but several of them in Loughcrew seem to be pointing towards this sunrise, which is around the 5th, 6th or 7th of November. And when the sun rises, it comes up over a hill outside the door of this monument called the Red Mountain or Slieve Rua, or Carrickbrack, Speckled Mountain. And the beam of sunlight flashes in, and this is what's so spectacular, is it hits the top of the Whispering Stone, the standing stone. This is the first thing to be lit by this beam of light. Then the beam of light slides off the Whispering Stone, and you can see it here on the right, on the panel of stone in the recess. And that's the shape of the doorway here you can see on the left, and that beam of light is lighting up that engraved panel on the back. So I'm just going to go back again. There's no difference, there's no comparison, between seeing the stone with your naked eye at any time and seeing it when it's actually lit up on the morning. When this is obviously how the stone is meant to be viewed, I suppose. That's just a close-up of it again. So the beam of light moves from the Whispering Stone down onto this panel at the back, and then it moves over onto this stone on the side, and then it starts to break up and the light leaves the chamber. So again, you can see the beam of light has gone from the top of the Whispering Stone here, and then it's moved around and it's gone across this panel, near it's broken up, and the recess has come back into darkness again. So that's quite a spectacular alignment. Again, there would be different opinions about its veracity or whatever, but the Stone Age people built these monuments and the sun shines into them at certain times. These things do, they happen. So Just quickly and finish up here, just a few pictures from the Boyne Valley. I haven't done a whole lot about the Boyne Valley because I wouldn't have witnessed too many things up there myself, and also some of the larger mounds, like Dowth, for example, you can't see the sun shining into anymore as the modern works. So this is here at Dowth, and this is an old picture of a stone called the Stone of the Seven Suns, and there are these engravings, and there are 7 of them on this stone here. And again, Martin Brennan probably gave this stone the name, the Stone of the Seven Suns. But there has been some interesting research been done recently, and there's a gentleman, Edgar, I don't know if you're out there, and he identifies these as basically illustrations of solar eclipses, and he has a very convincing argument. If you put one of these diagrams here beside a Victorian, early Victorian picture of a solar eclipse, definitely seem to be looking eclipses here. Hello to Ken Williams as well. I see you out there, Ken. I borrowed one of your pictures just to show the shadows shining outside Newgrange here. So Ken is a photographer, has a great website called Shadows and Stones, and that's just a great picture of Newgrange here, just giving it an idea of the size of the mound itself, 90 metres in diameter. You've got your stone circle running around the outside, 12 stones remaining of, we don't know how many were there originally, but the point about it is that these stones, especially the ones at the entrance, interact by casting shadows on some of the other stones. Again, there's controversy about the age of the stone circle around Newgrange. It's thought to be possibly up to 1,000 years younger than the passage grave itself. And here you have the roof box and the entrance over the entrance stone into. So anyway, great little picture there by Ken Williams.
Okay, so we're going to end it there. We actually went further than necessary. But that's it. So this is the segment of Martin Burns' astronomical observations at Stone Age sites presentation, which is available on YouTube, in which he mentions, my hypothesis that the rayed sun symbols on Dowth's Stone of the Seven Suns are in fact quite scientifically accurate depictions of total solar eclipses, and he seems to agree. He seems to be convinced, and I think most people, who have examined the facts, would agree that there's really little reason to doubt that the rayed sun symbols on Dowth's Stone of the Seven Suns are in fact symbols of the sun, and that they are more specifically depictions of the sun totally eclipsed behind the moon, with the sun's corona shining out all around it. I will actually note that Martin Brennan, in his illustrations of the Stone of the Seven Suns, he actually illustrates the inner circle of the sun's very dark black. So it's possible that even he saw at minimum that they were supposed to be darker, and he may well have understood that they were depictions of total solar eclipses, but for some reason I don't think he actually said that in any of his writing. I don't think he specifically identified these rayed sun symbols as being inspired by depictions of total solar eclipses, but the fact that he drew the inner circle dark, quite dark, basically black, in his illustrations of the Stone of Seven Suns indicates to me that, perhaps just subconsciously, if not consciously, he understood that they were depictions of total solar eclipses. So I think we're going to wrap it up. I think I sort of lost track of things a little bit. I just wanted to finish off because the video got cut off thanks to overheating, essentially. And I noticed this popped up while we were discussing, hi Martin Byrne, I was not out there when this live stream presentation was made. You heard him ask if I was out there during the video. I was completely unaware of it. Let's go to the page in question. Oh, that's strange. Why aren't we going to Facebook? Right. No. No. Oh well, so much for that. Thought it would take me to Facebook, but it didn't. So we're wrapping it up, but essentially that's it. I'm not the only one who thinks that these rayed sun symbols represent total solar eclipses. Martin Byrne is not the only other person who agrees with me on that. There's a few others, and maybe more than a few others. But certainly in terms of scholars and people who are well informed about the Boyne Valley passage tunes and so on, there's a number of significant figures that essentially agree with what I'm saying. They may not agree with absolutely every detail, but the basic idea that these rayed sun symbols represent total solar eclipses, or inspired by total solar eclipses, or effectively quite accurate depictions of total solar eclipses, they agree with that basic point, which is good enough. I think one can take things further. One can take things considerably further. But just the basic idea that these rayed sun symbols, are in fact almost certainly, and I'm being conservative when I say almost certainly, because in my view they are certainly depictions of total solar eclipses. But I'm being just a little bit conservative, because we can't prove it absolutely. We can't go back and talk to the people who carved them and ask them, well, what are you drawing here? But in terms of the circumstantial evidence, including the fact that there were a series of total solar eclipses above the Boyne Valley during and before the time that the Boyne Valley passage tombs were made, including at least one total solar eclipse that was in close proximity in terms of time, like just, I don't know, a century or so before they're believed to have been created. And who knows, maybe it was even closer. But there's at least one total solar eclipse, and I believe also an annular solar eclipse that occurred, very, very close to the time that the Boyne Valley passage tombs were created. And I should add, and I'll close on this, my opinion is that Dowth stone of the seven suns, because the rayed sun symbols are so realistic, so scientifically accurate, as opposed to some of the more abstract and symbolic and even cruder depictions of what I consider to be solar eclipses or the sun. I believe that the stone of the seven suns, at least part of it, was probably carved later in time, that it may not have been carved when the passage tombs were first built, that it may actually commemorate several total solar eclipses or well, I shouldn't say I'll say because there definitely were total solar eclipses. But so I believe it may be commemorating not necessarily seven, but several, 2 or 3 or 4 total solar eclipses that took place above the Boyne Valley just prior to the building of the passage tombs, and then in the next centuries, millennia or so, there were some others that took place after the Boyne Valley passage tombs were created. I don't have the dates memorized. I don't have the information right in front of me. Maybe in a future, this is very impromptu what I'm doing now. In future, I may do a more detailed thing, but I just off the cuff decided to read aloud my interpretation of Dowth Stone of the Seven Suns, and we took it from there. And so we're wrapping it up, and that's it for now. I certainly do have more to say, and there are things to say about Dowth. There are things to say about Loughcrew. There are things to say about Fornox. There are things to say about Newgrange, which aren't being said in this. All of these Boyne Valley passage tombs, as far as I'm concerned, display solar eclipse symbolism of one kind or another. But in my view, and it was the key for me, this was my first introduction to total solar eclipses being depicted on Boyne Valley passage tombs. I was first introduced to that by seeing this image, photograph essentially, with a caption in the Time Life book, The Monument Builders, back in the early mid 1990s. That was my first introduction to the existence of the passage tombs. I might have been vaguely aware of them, but I certainly don't recall having any memory of Dowth And I certainly wasn't aware of rayed sun symbols carved onto a so-called stone of the seven suns. So it was really then that I, made this hypothesis. And I didn't really spend a lot of time delving into other evidence of eclipses at the passage tombs, largely because I was preoccupied with other research and the Nazca lines, ancient Egyptian religion, and how eclipses had formed that. So the Irish passage tombs weren't my main focus at that point. I'm sort of regretting in them now, not having said more earlier and having done more research, but I really was at the time much more concentrated on how the Nazca lines were inspired by total solar eclipses, how ancient Egyptian religion and other ancient Mesopotamian religion were inspired by total solar eclipses, and so on. The Irish passage tombs, at the time in the mid-1990s, weren't very strongly on my radar, but in recent years I've taken a closer look at everything, and there really is, in my opinion, solar eclipse symbolism at all of the Irish passage tombs, and I will be talking more about that later. That's it for now.